What happens when a CEO grabs a cold slice of leftover pizza from the break room fridge, only to realize the cook who made it hasn't eaten all day? Jacob Bennett hadn't stepped foot in Store 9 in over 3 years. 13 locations under his belt now, all part of the pizza chain his father started in the 80s. After his dad passed, Jacob took over. At first, he was hands-on inventory checks, late-night calls, training new hires. But as the chain grew, he got pulled into boardrooms and spreadsheets. Lately, complaints were creeping in: slow service, high turnover, food quality slipping. Especially from Store 9. He asked for reports. Got polished excuses. We're short-staffed. It's the labor market. Inflation's hurting morale. Jacob didn't buy it. So, he shaved off his beard, dyed his hair a darker brown, and put on a fake name tag that read Eli. He signed up through a staffing agency the stores used to fill temp roles. No one questioned it. Store 9 had been desperate for kitchen help for weeks. It was a Tuesday morning when he walked in the back door. The heat hit him first, then the smell of grease and flour. A tall man in his early 40s greeted him with a clipboard and a sigh. "Great. You're the new temp. I'm Darren, manager. Don't get in the way, don't touch the register, and don't talk to customers unless I say so." "Got it." Jacob nodded. Got it. No one recognized him. Why would they? Most of the kitchen crew had been hired in the past 2 years. He'd never met any of them. By noon, the rhythm of the place was clear. Orders flew in. Ovens roared. People shouted over each other. The kitchen was chaos, barely controlled. That's when he first noticed her Nina Foster. Thin, mid-20s, fast as hell on the prep line. She made dough, sauced pies, slid them into the oven, and boxed them up without stopping to breathe. Her hands were cracked from flour and sanitizer. She didn't say much, but when she did, it was to help someone else. At 2 o'clock, the rush died down. Jacob leaned against the sink, catching his breath. Nina dropped onto a crate in the corner and pulled out a bottle of water. No food. He looked around. "You not eating?" She shrugged. "Didn't bring anything." "It's fine." Darren walked by, chewing on a slice of pepperoni pizza. "Break's over in 10, he barked. "Let's not get lazy." Jacob watched as Nina tossed her water bottle in the trash and got up without complaint. Later that evening, after the dinner rush, Jacob found a half-eaten pizza in the break room fridge. It was cold, but he was starving, so he grabbed a slice. Nina walked in just as he was chewing. "Oh," she said, stopping. "I was saving that." Jacob froze, mid-bite. Thought it was up for grabs. She gave a tired smile. "No worries. Not the first time." He felt something twist in his chest. "You didn't eat earlier," he said. "Why not just grab one of the staff meals?" Nina's smile faded. She opened her locker and pulled out her hoodie. "Staff meals aren't free anymore. They took that away last month." Jacob blinked. "What?"
"Yeah.
"Unless you're full-time. And even then, it's only a discount. I'm part-time." He didn't say anything. She zipped her hoodie. "But hey, at least I got a job, right? See you tomorrow, Eli." She left. Jacob stood there with the crust still in his hand. He threw it in the trash, suddenly not hungry at all. The next morning, he showed up early. Darren was already there, barking at someone for being 5 minutes late. Jacob kept his head down and got to work. But something was eating at him. How was a full-time kitchen worker not eating during a 10-hour shift? And why was someone like Nina, clearly one of the hardest workers there, still part-time? At noon, another rush slammed the store. Orders piled up. Darren disappeared for 30 minutes. Came back with a coffee and a sandwich. Nina didn't flinch, she just kept going. After close, Jacob stayed behind. "Hey," he said to Nina, as they mopped the back floor together. "Sorry again about that pizza." She smiled. "It's fine. I wasn't gonna eat it anyway. Rent's due Friday." He hesitated. How many hours are you getting?" 28. "They won't give me more." Says it'd make me eligible for benefits. Jacob's hand tightened on the mop. Later that night, when everyone left, he snuck into the office. He had the keys. He'd built this company. The system still recognized his login under a generic admin disguise. He pulled up Nina's file. Pay stub. $10.25 an hour. No benefits. No staff meals. Part-time status. No raises in over a year. He leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen. She was surviving on scraps, while he'd just eaten the only food she had saved for the day. His stomach turned. Jacob shut the computer and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. This wasn't just a bad manager. This was systemic.
And it was his system.
The next shift was going to be different. Wednesday started with a busted prep cooler and a line of online orders already printing when Jacob walked in. The kitchen lights flickered once before settling into a dull glow. He met eyes with Nina, who was already tying on her apron. She gave a nod, then turned to the busted cooler, propping it open with a stack of pan lids and a roll of duct tape. "You call maintenance?" he asked, pulling gloves from the box. "No point," she said, sliding a tray of cheese into a working fridge nearby. "Darren says to just work around it. Said the last ticket took 3 weeks to get serviced." Jacob exhaled through his nose. "That even safe?" She gave a quiet laugh. "Not really. But what else is new?" By mid-morning, it was clear the store was short at least 2 people. The fry station was unmanned, and the register kept pulling the only front-end worker off to handle complaints. A delivery driver quit mid-shift, tossing his hat on the counter without a word. No one seemed surprised. Darren didn't come in until nearly 11, dragging in with sunglasses and a fresh haircut. The first thing he did was check his phone and then disappear into the office. Jacob was folding boxes when he caught part of a conversation between 2 coworkers near the sink. "He doesn't even do inventory anymore," one of them muttered. "Just prints off last week's numbers and changes the date." "You hear what he told Carmen last week? Said if she wanted more hours, she should lose 5 pounds and smile at customers more." Jacob stopped folding. His hands went still. The other worker snorted. She walked out. Can't blame her. Jacob walked back to the prep table and kept his head down, but his jaw was tight. The lunch rush hit hard and fast. Nina was everywhere flipping dough, refilling sauce, answering the phone when no one else picked up. She moved with precision, but Jacob noticed something else now. She never asked for help, even when she clearly needed it. He slid next to her while she was arranging pepperoni on a half-loaded pie. "You always take on this much?" She didn't look up. "Only when I want things to get done right." "You trust the others?" She hesitated.
"Some.
But most are just trying to make it to the next paycheck. A few are new every week. Hard to train people who know they're quitting in 2 days." Jacob nodded slowly. "What about Darren?" Now she looked at him. "You trying to get fired, Eli?" He raised an eyebrow. She went back to her pizza. "He's been here a long time. Probably knows how to run the place. But he doesn't run it. He hides. Doesn't care unless the numbers drop." The bell at the front dinged 3 times in a row, an issue with the register. A customer was probably yelling again. No one moved to help. Nina sighed and wiped her hands. "I got it," she said. Jacob watched her go, then turned toward the back. He found Darren in the office, feet up on the desk, scrolling through his phone. The room smelled like cologne and stale coffee. Boxes of unopened cleaning supplies lined the wall. "Hey," Jacob said. "Prep cooler's still busted." Darren didn't look up. "Not my problem today." Jacob stepped further in. "It is, though. That's why you're here." Darren finally glanced up. "You're the temp, right? Look, I don't need a lecture from someone who's not even staying. You want to make yourself useful? Go mop the back hallway. There's a leak." Jacob didn't move. "You tell Nina she's doing 3 people's jobs today?" he asked. Darren chuckled. She likes it that way. She's one of those overachievers. Thinks hard work'll get her noticed. Cute, right? Jacob's fists curled. Before he could respond, the phone rang. Darren picked it up, muttered a few words, and hung up. Corporate sending someone next week, he said, stretching. Some regional guy. Probably just wants to check boxes. I'll clean up the place the day before. Maybe buy donuts or something. Jacob left without another word. By the end of the shift, Nina was wiping down the prep table in silence. Her sleeves were damp, and there was a red burn on her forearm fresh. She didn't mention it. Why not leave? Jacob asked. She looked up slowly. You're good. You work hard. You could get hired anywhere. She leaned on the table. I've had 4 jobs in the last 2 years. 2 of them shut down. One never paid me on time. This one's close to home, and I can walk here. It's not ideal, but I don't have time to chase something better. Not when rent's due and my sister needs help with school. Jacob nodded once. He didn't press. The next day, Jacob arrived early again. This time, he brought his own tools. He'd called a trusted technician he still kept on retainer from the early days. Paid out of pocket. The prep cooler was running by 10 a.m. Darren didn't notice. Too busy on his phone. Jacob started asking quiet questions. Not to Nina, he already knew she wouldn't complain, but to others. One worker, a 19-year-old named Marcus, said he hadn't had a scheduled break in 4 shifts. A dishwasher, barely 17, said she was told to clock out before mopping so the store wouldn't exceed labor budget. A cashier said Darren once made her come in on a Sunday, promising overtime but paid her in straight hours and told her to be grateful. Jacob was writing all of this down, each name, each detail, after hours in his car. Friday morning, something shifted. The store's area supervisor, a woman named Dana, showed up unannounced. First time Jacob had seen her in person in over a year. She walked in wearing heels, greeting Darren with a bright voice and a clipboard. He straightened up fast, suddenly full of energy. Jacob watched as Darren gave her a tour, pointing out changes he hadn't made, claiming credit for the fixed cooler and streamlined operations. Dana nodded along, scribbling notes. When they reached the kitchen, Jacob was boxing a calzone. Nina was on phones and prep at once. Dana turned to her. How are things here? Everything running smooth? Nina paused. It depends.
Dana blinked.
Depends on what? Nina looked at Darren. He was smiling. Then back at Dana. Depends on who you ask. Dana's expression shifted. Meaning? Nina wiped her hands. Some of us are working 2 stations without breaks. Some of us haven't seen a raise in over a year. Prep equipment's been broken for weeks. I only got gloves today because Eli brought his own box in. Jacob kept his face neutral. Dana turned to Darren. Is that true? Exaggeration, he said quickly. She's overreacting. She's just part-time. Dana looked back to Nina. You're part-time? Nina nodded. Why not apply for full-time? I did.
Twice.
Darren said there wasn't budget. Last week, he hired his nephew for full-time at the front. Dana's face tightened. She turned to Jacob. You're Eli, right? You've seen any of this? Jacob wiped his hands on his apron. All of it. Dana nodded once. I'll be back Monday. I want to see your schedule, payroll logs, and incident reports. If anything's missing, I escalate it. She turned and walked out. Darren followed, red in the face. The second they were gone, Nina stepped back from the counter. Her hands shook slightly. You didn't say anything, she said. I didn't need to, Jacob replied. You said enough. She stared at him for a moment, then nodded once and turned back to her station. He spent the rest of the shift watching the crew work, watching how they stepped over broken tiles, shared gloves, and helped each other without being asked, watching how they held the place together despite every reason not to. By closing time, Jacob made a decision. Not just about Darren. About the company. Store 9 wasn't broken because of one bad manager. It was broken because he'd let the system reward people like Darren and exhaust people like Nina. And that wasn't going to stay true much longer. He had seen enough. Saturday morning, the store lights flickered on at 6:30. Jacob stood alone in the back, arms crossed, hearing the hum of compressors and the distant buzz of fluorescents. He wasn't wearing the Eli name tag anymore. He waited. At 7 sharp, Darren walked in with a coffee in hand and froze in the doorway. His eyes landed on Jacob, then darted to the branded work shirt pressed and tucked into Jacob's belt. No disguise. Just the corporate crest stitched over Jacob's chest. Darren's posture stiffened. "You're Jacob Bennett," he said, stepping forward. "Owner. Founder's son." Darren's mouth opened, then closed again. His fingers twitched around his coffee cup. Before he could speak, Jacob raised a hand. "Drop the act, Darren. Office. Now." Darren moved without a word. The door shut behind them, and Jacob pulled up a chair across from the cluttered desk. The blinds were still open. He didn't care. "You've been here 7 years," Jacob said. "You started as shift lead, moved to assistant, then manager. You know the handbook. You know the standards." Darren nodded slowly. "So explain," Jacob said, voice flat. "Explain the falsified inventory reports, the refusal to escalate maintenance tickets, the scheduling violations, the payroll manipulation, and the staffing decisions you made based on relationships instead of qualifications." Darren cleared his throat. "Sir, this location's been under pressure. Labor costs, inflation, staffing shortages." "I was making judgment calls," Jacob leaned forward. "You told a cashier to clock out before mopping. You denied a raise to a top performer for over a year. You gave your nephew full-time hours while denying them to others. And you've been hoarding supply orders in this office for weeks." Darren's face flushed. "Those were temporary decisions. I was going to—" "You sat in this chair for hours a day doing nothing while your team bled," Jacob cut in. "You brushed off safety concerns and mocked an employee behind her back."
Don't lie to me.
"I heard it myself." Darren's voice dropped. "It's not as bad as you're making it sound." "Then you're even more out of touch than I thought." Jacob stood. "You're terminated, effective immediately. I've already flagged your access. I'll have someone collect your keys before you leave." Darren looked stunned.
Wait.
"You're firing me? On the spot? You don't get to manage people when you treat them like they're disposable." Darren stood slowly, then turned and walked out. The door didn't slam. It just clicked shut behind him. Jacob exhaled and sat back down. He stared at the scattered paperwork across the desk, then opened the top drawer. Inside was a stack of time-off requests, most marked denied. Several were folded with notes in the margins saying, "Not my problem," and "Figure it out." He closed the drawer. By 8, the crew started arriving. Marcus shuffled in, earbuds in, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. The 17-year-old dishwasher, her name was Lacey, he learned walked in with a backpack and a water bottle, no breakfast. Jacob stood by the prep table and waited until they'd clocked in. Then he called everyone to the front. They gathered slowly, unsure. Jacob didn't raise his voice. "Darren's gone," he said simply. "I fired him this morning." Silence. A few glances between crew members. Nina wasn't there yet. "I'll be here for the next 2 weeks, full-time," he continued. "Not as Eli. As Jacob. I'm not here to play boss. I'm here to fix what I let break." Marcus raised a hand. "Is this like a test?"
No.
"This is accountability." Lacey looked up. "Does this mean we'll get someone new?"
Yes.
"But not until I'm confident the next manager deserves you. Until then, I'm in the kitchen with you." A few nods.
No plus.
Just the quiet weight of cautious hope. Nina arrived 20 minutes later, hair tied back, sleeves rolled. She saw Jacob in front, blinked once, and stopped by the hand wash station.
You're not Eli, she said.
No, he replied. I'm Jacob Bennett. She took it in without expression. So, the pizza thing. That was real. Yes. She nodded once, then walked past him to the prep table. He followed. I fired Darren. I heard. He lied to me for a long time, but I let it happen. Nina didn't look at him. She laid out dough trays and started arranging ingredients. You don't have to explain, she said. Jacob shook his head. I do. Because I saw you do 3 jobs for less than a living wage. I saw you feed customers while skipping meals. I saw what I built and I didn't recognize it. That made her pause. He continued. You kept this place standing.
Not because you were told to.
Because no one else would. She met his eyes. I thought you were just another new hire who didn't get it. I didn't, he said. Not until I stood next to you. She studied him. So what now? You're full-time, starting today. Retroactive pay increased to match our top-tier wage band. Benefits enrollment starts Monday. And if you want it, I'll sponsor your application for shift lead. She frowned. I didn't ask for a promotion. I know. But you earned it. She nodded once. No thanks. Just acceptance. By noon, Jacob was back on the line. Orders came fast. He worked oven. Nina managed prep. Marcus ran register. Lacey handled dishes and fry. The rhythm was still exhausting. Still relentless. But there was something different now. Orders were completed faster. Fewer mistakes.
No scouting. No disappearing supervisors.
At 3, a delivery truck pulled in. Jacob stepped outside to meet the driver. Got a new maintenance checklist from corporate, the driver said, handing over a clipboard. Looks like you're on weekly priority rotation now. Jacob nodded. Thanks. Inside, he posted the new checklist on the wall by the time clock. He didn't announce it. Let them see it themselves. Before close, he called Nina over. Schedule's a mess, he said. I need someone who actually knows how this place runs to rebuild it. You want me to do it? Only if you're willing. She looked at the screen. You're giving me access? I trust you. She clicked a few times. Marcus needs evenings off for school. Lacey should never close alone. You're short on weekday mids. Show me what it should look like.
She did.
He stood back and watched her rework the whole week in under 15 minutes. Strategic, clear, fair. You've done this before, he said. No, she replied. I just know what doesn't work. He saved the schedule and posted it. No approvals needed. After close, he stayed behind while the team cleaned. He took out the trash, mopped the back hallway himself. When he returned, Nina was waiting by the lockers. You're really staying 2 weeks? She asked. Yes. Then you'll see what it takes to keep this place running. I already do. She nodded once and left. Jacob stood alone in the empty kitchen. Flour dust still hung in the air. The cooler hummed steady now. The prep table gleamed under the overhead lights. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old Eli name tag. He didn't throw it away. He hung it on the corkboard near the clock and screen, right above the new safety checklist. Not as a memory. As a reminder. The following Monday began with a clipboard and a quiet breakfast meeting in the dining area. Jacob, Nina, and the district HR coordinator, Charisse. She'd driven in from headquarters at Jacob's request. The restaurant wasn't open yet, the lights still half dim, the smell of bleach faint in the air from the early morning floor scrub. No one else was scheduled for another hour. Nina sipped her coffee, without saying much. She wasn't someone who filled space with unnecessary words. Jacob respected that. He listened while Charisse laid out the documentation, time card audits, exit interviews, and a formal review of the prior management's conduct. She didn't sugarcoat it. The findings were conclusive, and the violations weren't isolated. When Charisse finished, Jacob turned to Nina. You'll be the one they come to now, he said. You're not just running a shift. You'll be shaping the way this place works. I can't fix everything from a distance, but I can make sure the person who has the tools. Nina set her cup down. I'll need to hire 2 more people. 1 for delivery, 1 for weekend morning prep. And I want to train them myself. Jacob nodded. Approved. I also want a repair log posted by the back door, she added. Not buried in the office. If something breaks, I want it in writing where everyone can see it hasn't been ignored. Charisse jotted that down. We can implement that chain-wide if it works here. It'll work, Nina said. She didn't ask permission.
She stated it like a fact.
The first shift under her lead started rough. Marcus showed up late, looking sheepish, claiming his sister had taken the car without warning. Nina didn't scold him. She handed him a broom, told him to sweep the back dock, then clock in after. Consequence, without humiliation. When Lacey spilled fryer oil trying to refill it solo, Nina didn't shout. She called for Jacob, pointed out the lack of an oil caddy, and asked if there was budget for the proper gear. There was always budget, Jacob said. It was just spent in the wrong places. He ordered the equipment that afternoon. By the end of the week, the crew had a rhythm, but not a routine. Nina didn't let things settle into autopilot. She rotated stations, asked for input on shift flow, even pulled a shy new hire named Tomas off dish to run register for a day, just to see how he handled it. He stumbled through the first few orders, but by the lunch rush, he was making small talk with customers and remembering their regular orders. After one particularly long Friday, Jacob lingered near the back, wiping down a prep table. Nina was checking the walk-in inventory. When she came out, she didn't speak right away. She leaned against the cooler and crossed her arms. You're not staying after this week, she said.
No, Jacob replied.
I've got 3 other stores in worse shape, but I'll be back. Regularly. You're not going to disappear again? I won't make that mistake twice. She nodded, then looked around the kitchen. This place still isn't good. No, Jacob agreed. But it's better. And it's yours now. I don't want ownership, she said. I want fairness. And a team that's not burned out before the dinner rush even starts. Then that's what we'll build. She pushed off the cooler and handed him a clipboard. These are the hours for next week. I didn't max anyone out, but I gave people who asked for more the chance. And I left 1 spot open. We've got a guy coming in Tuesday for a trial shift. He's green but willing. Jacob flipped through the schedule. It was balanced. Not perfect, but no one was overloaded, and the gaps were honest, not hidden under fake availability codes like before. Anything else you need? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded. A second pair of oven gloves. The ones we've got are cracking.
Done.
She paused again, then finally added, and a small fan by the dish station. It's like a furnace back there. Consider it solved. That Sunday night, Jacob gathered the crew after closing. No speeches. Just a simple announcement. Nina's officially promoted to assistant manager. Full wage. Full authority. Her manager application will be reviewed next quarter, but until then, she runs this store. No one clapped. They were too tired. But no one looked surprised either. Even Marcus nodded like it was overdue. Jacob handed her a new name badge. No ceremony, just passed it to her like it was any other tool. Later that night, he sat alone in the office, flipping through an old binder that had somehow survived the years. His father's notes were still there, written in neat block letters. One margin read, "Take care of the people who take care of the food. Everything else follows." He closed the binder. Outside, the last of the crew was heading home. He could hear Nina's voice calm, direct, reminding Lacey to bring a second pair of socks tomorrow because the new anti-slip mats could still collect grease. He turned off the office light and stepped out into the kitchen one last time. The cooler was running. The gloves were new. The wall near the prep sink had a fresh rack with tools hanging properly labeled. No one had asked for it. Nina had just done it. Jacob locked the front door behind him and stepped into the lot. The city was quiet. Just the hum of distant traffic and the glow of the streetlights on the cracked pavement. He walked to his car, opened the door, and paused. The Eli tag was still clipped to his dash. He looked at it for a long moment, then took it off and slid it into the glove box. Not as a keepsake. As a warning. He drove away knowing this. The job wasn't done. But for the first time in a long time, the right people were finally in charge of the right things. And no one would go hungry on his watch again.